Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dealing with Different. My name is Adam, also known as Adam Tilted, and I'm really excited about my guest tonight, today, this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm going to be talking with Tianna Hall about the autism spectrum. So I'm going to bring Tianna on, and there we go. Hi, Tianna. How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. How you doing? You are
I'm
on.
doing great. Well, hi everybody. I'm doing great. My name is Tianna Hall. I am an autism activist, autism rights, autism. I don't know how else you would describe me. I'm on the autism spectrum myself.
Mama Bear.
I'm sorry?
Mama Bear.
Autism Mama Bear, yes, that's definitely appropriate. I'm on the autism spectrum myself, albeit what's considered mildly affected and what used to be called Asperger's syndrome. Since the DSM-5 came out, that diagnosis has been eliminated and instead absorbed into the autism spectrum umbrella. So now I am not considered an FB, as people like to say. I am simply autistic, just as my two children are as well. Now, there's a misconception in that the autism spectrum is linear in how you diagnose someone on it, and that is certainly not the case. We are all
like it's a line, like you're at one end or the other, right?
Finish at one end of a line or another, but that's malarkey, and you have to instead think of it spherically. So while at times, most people like to also use terms like mildly affected, moderately affected, severely affected, or high functioning, low functioning.
Right.
Who's to say what's high functioning, low functioning?
Yeah. Those are all problematic.
Exactly.
Because it's also not fixed, right? I mean, it's not like you're one way and you're that way forever.
Absolutely. It changes. And in my case, people would say that I am considered high functioning because I have too much expressive language at times.
Which is one of the things that I love about you personally, by the way.
and because I am capable of having a job and, making a living and supporting myself, they consider that high functioning. But there are instances that have happened throughout my life where I'm so paralyzed by my symptoms and my the symptoms of my diagnosis that I am squarely in the low functioning category, because when I'm in the middle of a panic attack or an anxiety attack, I can't breathe. I can't talk. I can't move. I can't speak.
I can relate.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a funny thing, but people feel more comfortable giving someone a very specific criteria of diagnosis, so they because it helps them understand where they are.
Yes.
And I understand that. I totally get it. So I've come to, and I used to use the same terminology when I was meeting other special needs moms with kids that were on the autism spectrum. I'd say, oh, is he high functioning or low functioning? Because I want to know, are they like my son or are they like my dog?
Right.
Or like me. And I've done away with that. So instead, my first question is generally, is your child verbal? Are they able to use expressive language? So,
yes.
Because a child can be able to speak and script like my son does, he doesn't really use that much language in order to communicate. He uses it to self-soothe. So he'll memorize episodes of Neil deGrasse Tyson Cosmos episodes and just...
Another of my heroes, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Another of my heroes, by the way.
Oh my gosh, he's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so I think part of his fascination with him too is that he has a low tonality voice, and so it's soothing to him. Hi, Melissa. Nice to meet you too. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson's tone of voice is warm and dark.
Oh yeah, it has that resonating bass quality. Yes.
And my son he has many of my symptoms, and he has many of my husband's symptoms. Now, mind you, my husband is not diagnosed. But you have to have a number of the autism red flags, as they call them, to be diagnosable, and he doesn't have enough, right? But he has many of them. So my son has, in turn, inherited my quirks and my husband's quirks and a couple of other ones. So one of my quirks is sensitivities to frequencies of sound. And so I have a very difficult time with a lot of women's speaking voices. If they're very piercing and forward, and
so it's the higher pitches.
It's not specifically high pitch, because for God's sake, I'm an operatic soprano.
Yes, but I was gonna say something about that.
But it's not the pitch. It's also the tone. So I'm a soprano, but I have a dark tone. So
yes.
For instance,
I see what you mean.
Yeah, so working with like musicians here in town, I generally don't work with trumpet very often, but there are two players in town that I work with often that play trumpet, but it's because they have a technique that is warmer and buttery, strident and piercing. And so I'm able to be on a bandstand with them and not have a panic attack, whereas other times I'm not. So sensory issues are a huge deal. And, my son has some sensory issues that I don't, and vice versa. So I'm very sensitive to clothing textures, and my son doesn't seem to care much at all about it. My daughter is not at all sensitive to clothing textures, but she is incredibly sensitive to food textures. So am I. My daughter and I have pretty similar traits. But like I said, my son has pretty much very nearly all of my traits, and then my husband's as well.
Well, I want to ask you more. I want to ask you more about that. Sure. But first, we have some feedback from the audience. So I want to just scan back here. A lot of people saying hello. Hi. Mary is the person I was talking to you about before we came on the air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I would like to connect the two of you.
Special needs mom fist bump.
Yes, there you go. And I don't know if you saw, but Scott was on here earlier.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah, so that's fun. That's my husband, for those of you that don't know.
He's dreamy.
Isn't he? Hubba hubba, yes. Yes, and I have a lot of my friends are in here. Thank you so much. If you could do me a favor and share this out, I would really appreciate it, because this is an important topic that we talk about, and it's we are very lucky to have Tianna here, because
about lucky, I talk too damn much. Sorry.
Well, no, that's what I love, because I talk too damn much too, and I don't know. Like, I've learned so much from you. From just what you've been saying on your own on Facebook about not just autism, but like the domino effect that it has on your entire family and your entire life. That, that's one of the reasons why I created this show, is to get those stories out there, because people need to know that there's a face to this. It's not just some abstract line item on a budget somewhere.
Absolutely.
These are people. These are children. These are, lovely human beings. And the only thing is they're just a little different than everybody. It's like, we're all different. So why is this different scaring you more than that? Just like, get over it.
Yes, and there's a popular meme in the autism community that I love, because I'm a nerd, and like nerd stuff. But this one specifically is autism is not a. It's something about the operating system, right? It's not
right.
It's not
It's a software
broken machine
glitch.
It's like the difference between Windows and Mac machines. That's all. I mean, they both function just in different ways.
And they're both are fine. It's just you got to learn to speak one language or the other, ideally both.
Exactly. And I'm one of those moms. I'm not one of the find a cure people, because I don't think there's anything to cure. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my children. But what I would like to seek is autism awareness, autism acceptance, autism education, so that people learn how to interact with those of us that have trouble with social cues, with anything of that sort. So me specifically, I have had a hard time throughout my life in social situations and interacting with my peers. As a child, I wasn't terribly interested in kids my age. I never was, ever, as a child, like ever. All the people that I found most interesting were my parents' age or my grandparents' age.
Interesting.
Even when I was like 4 or 5, I just, yeah. And it turns out all of the kids that I did interact with and did form, relationships and bonds with, the vast majority of them are, one, gay men now. They've always been my people.
You can take credit for that.
It's that's I didn't turn them. They were
They
were that way, baby, before they even knew.
But you probably made them more comfortable, I'm sure.
Oh well, I'm
because you're a diva girl.
Who are we kidding? I'm an honorary drag queen and an honorary gay man.
Yes, of course.
But the children that I did end up forming bonds with and finding interesting, turns out most of them are either undiagnosed and on the spectrum, now that I know the symptoms and what it actually is. I wasn't diagnosed as a child. I didn't get it diagnosed until I was an adult. Yeah, exactly, Mary. My son we call him the little professor. He's like a little old man. He is incredibly drawn to my father-in-law. He's incredibly drawn to my grandfather. They both have very similar cadence of voice. They're both neurologically wired, I think very much like me and my kids. Both brilliant men, and patient. And you can feel, being around them, that there is no tension, there is no judgment, there is none of that. And my son, without question, it's like he finds his tribe without any sort of point from us or direction from us. It's like he seeks those people out automatically, without fail. Every time we're in any situation, he seeks out people that are like us.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but
I've noticed that I have nephews that are on the spectrum.
Absolutely, and
actually, almost all of my nephews, now that I think about it, are on the spectrum. But they're all very different from each other. And I found the same thing, that that's one of their, I don't know, it's just that they're part, I don't know if it's a survival mechanism. It's certainly a pattern I notice, is that like when they move from one school to another, they seek out people. It's not very many people.
Right.
But it's like a core group of squad. Like that's their squad.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we're all wired that way, to find that we're neurologically similar to. I really do. Whether it be on the spectrum or not.
Oh yeah.
If you're not on the spectrum, you seek out people that are like-minded, that are similar in the way they think and similar in nature. I think that's a survival mechanism. It's primitive.
Yes.
And even with a child like my son, who's nonverbal, or he's mostly considered nonverbal because he doesn't use spontaneous expressive language very much. He does every once in a while, but not a ton. But my daughter, for instance, she's on the autism spectrum as well, but she's verbal. She's very expressive in her language. She's much further along than her older brother. But she has sensory issues. So now, if we didn't have another child that was on the autism spectrum, and if I didn't have my own diagnosis being on the autism spectrum, she probably would have never been diagnosed. Or at least not until adulthood, when she sought out a diagnosis on her own for her quirks and her isms, like I did. But and it's a funny thing. I mean, me receiving my diagnosis doesn't really serve much, except that now I'm able to act as a voice for others in the community that perhaps don't have the wherewithal or the ability to vocalize their wants, needs, and expectations. So that alone is worth it for me to have the diagnosis, so that I can act as a stronger ally and advocate for my
use
children.
Your voice, right?
Exactly.
That's what I'm doing as well. But I wonder, were you aware of a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Now, mind you, I had a laundry list of diagnoses before I was finally, oh honey. And some of them kind of rare. So I had a diagnosis of misophonia, which is the association with the sound frequency thing. So many of these diagnoses were sensory processing disorder portions, sensory processing disorder issues. And then chronic depression, anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder. But all of these symptoms, when I finally went to a diagnostician and was like, okay, you're the best of the best in the city of Houston. I am not telling you anything about my children. I will answer any questions you have about my past, about my relatives at my generation and above. But I don't want to tell you anything about my children, because I don't want you to have any preconceived notions and give me
what you want to hear. Yeah.
Diagnosis based on, oh, well, your kids are both autistic, so
yeah.
I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted a true diagnosis, because I knew that with all of my symptoms, it probably didn't make sense that I had 6 to 7 diagnoses, right? It didn't. It doesn't.
Right.
So instead, I have 2. I actually have 2, and those 2 diagnoses absorbed all the 7 other ones. So I have autism spectrum disorder, and it was so fun. I mean, he was 15 minutes into this 4-hour analysis, and he was like, well, I'll tell you right now, and I don't want this to shock you or scare you, because it sounds like a big scary diagnosis, but you have, and I'm certain, you have what's called Asperger's syndrome, or what used to be called Asperger's syndrome. It now just falls under the autism spectrum disorder. Now, don't freak out. It doesn't mean you're like Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man. I'm like,
oh no, really?
He said that, and I'm like, sir, please
just stop. You're killing me.
I'm quite familiar with autism, sir. I'm very familiar. I'm not.
You know not to whom you speak.
He's like, oh, okay, so you know about it? You know about it. I'm like, I know more about it than I should. And he's like, okay, well then let's keep going. Okay. And so we did another 3.5 hour. Oh, I'm ridiculous. We did another 3.5 hour session. And then by the end, he was like, okay, so I had told him about all of my. By then, I had told him what I had been diagnosed with in the past. And he was like, okay, I can see why they came up with all of those things as your diagnoses. Now, mind you, all of those diagnoses were by different practitioners at different points in your life. Now, are they all true? Do you have all of those things? Yes, but it is more appropriate to give you these 2 diagnoses, bipolar type 2, autism spectrum disorder, because they absorb all of those diagnoses. and they fall under that umbrella. Now, you have two big, fat, huge diagnoses that people are real afraid to say, but the other ones are kind of, they're little and fluffy and sweetness and light, whatever. They're just kind of quirky things. Now you have, this is you. And I'm like, okay. And yes, it was, I wanted him to tell me that I didn't have autism. I wanted him to tell me that I have generalized anxiety disorder and chronic depression. That's what I wanted to hear. With a little dose of misophonia in the mix. That's not it. That's not it. That's not me. And
yeah.
And how screwed up is that after even me having 2 children on the spectrum, having cousins on the spectrum, having grandfathers, uncles, countless people in my family, diagnosed and otherwise, on the spectrum, I was still afraid of that label for myself. Why?
I can understand that. I mean, that it signals that we have a lot of work to do, because that shouldn't be the reaction, but I can understand why it is.
All the people to have that reaction. Me?
But you know more than most people what impact those labels can have on the rest of your life.
Exactly.
So to you, they mean something different than they might to the average person who doesn't know much about mental illnesses, because most people don't know.
Thing. It's not necessarily a mental illness. It's a neurological difference. And so.
Oh, yes. Thank you for correcting me on that.
That's okay.
Because I was thinking of the anxiety, depression, all of those things. Do they follow under both, I guess, huh?
Kind
or
of. It's so those symptoms are because of the way I'm neurologically wired. I don't get the same signals
right.
the same way. My synapses don't fire the same way as yours do.
Whereas my anxiety is most likely caused by a chemical imbalance that is exacerbated by all the other medications that I have to take. Sure. Yeah, so okay. So that's the difference. Okay, great. I wanted to take another look at the comments, because we've had a couple of great ones that I wanted to.
Oh, sorry. I'm really bad about that part.
No, that's okay. I'm getting better at that, and I find that it's good to. I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying because it was so great. So we'll just take a little pause and see what people have said, because they are loving what you have to say. Now this.
Oh God.
So okay. Yeah. And Mary Elizabeth can relate to that. So Anna is another children with special needs mom. So fist bump, Anna.
Whoop, whoop, Anna.
Yes. And they are loving this. Excellent. Great. So we're going to continue the conversation for just a few minutes, but I want to ask you a favor. If you like this content and you want to hear more of it, and you want me to continue to be able to have guests like Tianna and do this live streaming, then I need your help, because this doesn't happen for free. And up to this point, I have been really happy to, invest my own money into it, but it's come to a point where I need your help. So there is a Patreon account that you can use to become a sponsor of the show. And there are sponsorships that are as little as $1. And I tell you, if every person that watched this gives me $1, I'm good. Because I don't need very much. Seriously, to run this show, I probably need $50 a month, which is not much. Okay?
No, that's nothing.
No, it's too much for me to absorb into my budget. But spread it around. If 10 of you gave $5, we're done. If 5 of you gave $10, if 50 of you gave $1, awesome.
Done.
Okay, done. All right. There's also some patron-only content on the Patreon page, so you get a little extra bonus for going there. I will put that link in the comments at the end of the show. Thank you for considering that. And I wanted to just make sure that I knew there was one more thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that is the equine therapy.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Tell me about that, because I've seen on Facebook the videos of your children with the horses, and it's very intriguing to me how that works.
It is intriguing, and I am one of those skeptic people that I like data and I like science. I don't like any of the pseudoscience crap that gets spewed everywhere from Playboy Playmates and other idiots that don't know what they're talking about. I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, so equine therapy, we started that. This has been years ago, and I was like, Lex was in the middle of this horrible regression from he wasn't being provided FAPE, which is a free appropriate public education in the school system, and we were just grasping at straws, trying to find anything to help him continue to make progress rather than lose progress we'd worked so hard for as a team. I mean, we have so many people that are on Team Lex that have been helping him since he was diagnosed at 20 months, and we found this organization in Meadville, Texas, which is south of Sugar Land, and it's called Hooves and Heart Stable. The therapy group is at the stable is called Hoof Prints and Heartbeats, and it's run by my friends Brenda and Julie. Dr. Julie Cunningham is out there, and Brenda Hollingsworth. Cunningham. I said Cunningham. That's not really Dr. Julie Hollingsworth and her wife, Brenda Hollingsworth. Their daughter is going to school and is pursuing becoming a therapist and a BCBA after working with Lex, because they immediately were like, click.
That's awesome.
I know. She was in high school, and since she started working with Lex, she was like, this is my goal in life, is to work with kids like this, because
that's great.
Amazing. And then, at the time, my daughter wasn't diagnosed yet, but she was obsessed with horses. So she would come with us and, horse, it's a horse, that's a horse, 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 horse. And then Brenda would be like, that's a mule. Horse.
Close enough.
I know, it's so funny. But then, of course, my daughter was diagnosed, and she started the equine therapy as well. Now, the thing that's been so amazing to see is my son can be in the middle of a full-on sensory overload, freak out, and his anxiety's through the roof, he's stimming, he's, having a hard time. But we get him on that horse, and it's like a light switch. And the horses are so intuitive, and I don't know how to describe it, because there is something about those kids and those horses working together and riding together. It's just like a kinship, and it's kind of like how Lex seeks out people of his tribe, people and there's a great book called Neurotribes that y'all should check out if you're interested.
Neurotribes. I'm gonna write that down.
Neurotribes, like NEURO tribes.
And I guess horses get that. They vibe on that.
They are so intuitive. It's unbelievable. Well, and my son also has a service dog, and same thing with her. She knows when he is freaking out or when he's going to freak out, and so she alerts me. When
That's awesome.
I'm having a panic attack, and before it happens, she's like, she nudges me, and it's almost like she's saying, "Go take your meds, girl." But she does the same alert whenever my son is in a sensory environment that is too much for him. She lets me know, and immediately, either if they're tethered, she'll immediately take him to a low sensory input zone, or I take him, and then she's like, "Okay, cool, I'm gonna sit down now. Where's my tennis ball?" she's amazing, and she's changed our lives. So yes, equine therapy is amazing, and we love it, and we love the people that run that organization. They just get it. Brenda is a registered nurse, and her wife Julie is I can't remember what she's a doctor of, but Dr. Julie Hollingsworth. She's amazing. They're both amazing. And
so what do they do with the horses?
So all it is them getting on the horse and riding in circles. And the horses somehow know when the kids are getting anxious, and they stop. They just stop. And they wait until the kid has centered again, and then they go again. They don't even have to get cued. They don't tell the horses anything. They hold them, and there's someone standing next to the kids to make sure that they're safe. My middle child is likely dyslexic, confirmed ADHD. Yeah, they are. See, yeah, she experienced the intuitive nature of the horses as well. It's unbelievable.
That's so interesting. And the horses they're not specially trained for this. They just do this.
No, they pick the horses to work with the kids based on their nature. Like if they're going and.
That's really amazing.
Again,
and
I
beautiful.
am not one of those hippy dippy types. I'm a hippy dippy vegetarian, but I'm not a hippy dippy about science. Like,
Well, what I tell people is I'm a scientist by nature, but I'm not arrogant to think that I know everything.
Most scientists aren't.
Right. So I realize that, okay, maybe there's no evidence for what you're saying, but I don't have any way to disprove it either. So let's just keep it as an open question. If it seems to be working, that's great. I don't care why at this point.
Yeah,
we can worry about that later.
There's another the mainstay therapy for autism is called applied behavioral analysis, or ABA, and that's been the gold standard for over 20 something years, right? They're great for that, Mary. But there's another therapy option called DIR floor time, developed by Dr. Greenspan. And the Greenspan methods don't have the data and all of the testing and scientific journals that ABA does, and all the evidence. Yet it's coming along. Mm-hmm. And it's the funniest thing, because every autistic adult that I know, and I'm a member of a couple of support groups for adults with autism, every one of them that has been through ABA hated it. Every one of them has experienced Greenspan methods and DIR floor time, love it. And I've had my children do both, and they still do both. But it's a funny thing, because in my opinion, there's more neurological science involved in the methods that Greenspan uses than an ABA. And I feel like traditional ABA ignores about 30 plus years of neurological science.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, we've learned so much about the way the brain works. I mean, there's still so much to learn, but we've learned a lot in recent years that we just simply didn't know before. So the developments
of science alone in the last 20, 30 years are astounding. And so the thought that we would still be using the same methods they've been using 20
Exactly. It's too bad that it's takes there's a delay. Like, come on, let's use the current.
Yes, of course.
Stuff, right?
And so in that regard, DIR floor time, Greenspan methods, the best book, and I'm on my third copy, it's called Engaging Autism by Greenspan. It's astounding, and it is a very, very, very worthwhile read, albeit clinical, but I'm all about clinical. So my favorite books on autism right now is the Unwinding Autism, or is it Engaging Autism, the Greenspan book, and Uniquely Human by Dr. Barry Prizant, Prizant. That book is amazing. It's amazing.
Uniquely Human?
Uniquely Human. And it's relatively new. It's not that old. It's only been out, I think, about a year and a half or 2 years. I mean, I made friends with this guy on Facebook. I think I've bought about 20 copies of that book to give to my therapists for my kids, because I'm like, please read this. Please know what this is. Please read this book, please.
Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct. And another one I always give to all of my therapists that work with my kid, because my son has hyperlexia and hypernumeracy, which is means he has some savant characteristics, and so we want to nurture those strengths rather than trying to stop them or
hide them or
he's not interested in. So if he has something he's interested in, that's what we should pursue, and so that's what we pursue. So the book that's really interesting on that is called The Spark. And it's about, nurturing genius and differences in children that not necessarily are on the autism spectrum, but this child, this woman, it's the mother that wrote it, and the child that she is speaking about, her son, is so much like Lex. It's unbelievable. It's like reading about my kid. Because this kid also had really precocious abilities with math and reasoning and science, numbers, letters, just like my son. So interesting. I told you we went over the time.
That's okay. That's okay. We're just barely. So I want to say thank you to the audience for joining us. You guys were great.
Thank you.
We've got giving us some love.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, thank you. If you didn't share this out already, please do. If you're watching the replay, share it out. Thank you so much, Tianna. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I didn't mention that Tianna is a jazz singer and performs locally in Houston. And
for a living.
Yes, and amazing performer. Love it. And she frequently will broadcast some of her performances live on Facebook. So,
my music page.
So what is your music page?
Facebook.com/Tianna Hall. TIANNAHALL.
Excellent. So go check that out. I love to put you up in the background while I'm working and just listen to that.
Fabulous.
That soothing voice just keeps me going.
He's sexy, even though I'm a big dork. I pretend. I'm really good at pretending. It's an autism trait, actually.
Oh, you pull it off well. You work it.
Oh my god!
Excellent.
Talk on the break. They're like, "Oh." And I'm like,
yeah, sorry, I turned that off. The microphone's off, that's off. Different girl. Well, thank you so much. And for everyone that's watching, if you have an experience that you want to share or have ideas, somebody, please let me know. Reach out, put a comment, send me a message, because I am always looking for guests to be on and share the different perspectives. I believe that the more we get to know people that are different than we are, the better off everyone will be.
Absolutely.
So be good to each other, and thank you for watching. Thank you, Tianna.
Bye, guys.
Bye.